Well, I was going to come in shirtless here for today's show because of that hot action we had this week. But, JB, you brought up a good idea, actually. And so, you know what? Wesley, last Route 13 showdown coming up, right?
Yep. That's it.
I think it's time. My microphone I've got off me, so hold on. Excuse my back, folks.
Oh, we got here. Okay. There's the number 7. Wolverine Nation is coming up.
We don't try to pick sides on this show. It obviously, we don't do this often. But you know what? Special occasion.
Yep. There it is. Maybe for the last time in their home field too. So gotta make the most of it, right?
Yep. So, JB, we got a lot to talk about. That's our cold open, but we got the hot action coming up. It's season 13, week 5 of In the Huddle. I probably will lose the hat at some point here, but JB, we have, like I said, way too much to talk about. We've got so many great guests and interviews that we did with them on this show. I think we need to let you just jump into who we have joining us before we get to crunch time.
Okay, yeah. Well, the big story of last weekend was the 2 SAA semifinal matchups. So, starting us off, we'll have from Hendrix College down in Conway, Arkansas, redshirt senior quarterback Miles Thompson and junior defensive back Matthew Scirto to talk about that 13-3 defensive battle that they won over Trinity of Texas to punch their ticket, claiming the Western Division Championship, and they are headed to the War Memorial Stadium there in Little Rock, about 30 miles from their campus. So we'll get to talk to those guys. And across the sidelines from them will be sophomore quarterback Gavin Gray of the Berry Vikings, along with head coach Tony Kunczewski, and we're just going to call him Coach K from here on out.
or TK, as some people call him. Yep.
Yeah, TK was fired up and he's excited. He's a young coach who's got his program in another championship game in a very short period of time. So good stuff there going on in Rome, Georgia, not too far from Atlanta. And finally, Frank, looking ahead to week 6, we're going to have some newcomers to the field, including a team that many people in D3 might have heard of called Mount Union. And they have a senior defensive back, hybrid linebacker, just possible future defensive player of the year, maybe. We'll have to see. Kordell Ford is coming in to talk to us about the OAC season and how Mount Union is really looking to get back to the national championship game, not in the spring, but obviously down in the fall. And this spring season will help get them towards that goal, hopefully.
Not to be confused with this Union right here, which is not playing football, but they are playing spring sports at the very least. Okay, yes. Now that we've clarified that, I'm taking this off for now because, my hair just can't stand a hat, or I don't look good in a hat. I know that much, folks. We've got more legal briefs on my desk here, and I think that means we need to talk about crunch time for week 5 of spring 2021 D3 football. We'll start in the ODAC. Friday night action again for the entirety of the participants for the ODAC this go around. And first we have Berry and Hendrix winning 47-14 over Southern Virginia. How do we get there? Well, first, about 4 minutes into the game, Gray Overstreet, he had 30 yards on this run for the touchdown to make it 7-0, and one play drive, 8 seconds long. Great way to start your scoring there. But hey, look, Southern Virginia decides to come right on back about halfway through the second quarter. Actually, took a little while. Skylar Johnson from Davis-Pinkston, 26-yard touchdown pass there, makes it 7 apiece. But before halftime, only 2 minutes later, in fact, it is Hunter Taylor throwing it to Elijah Rice for a 50-yard touchdown, 14-7 Emory and Henry at that point. And the touchdown really iced it. Was 3 minutes into the second half. Hunter Taylor this time finds Gunnar Griffith from 12 yards out, making it 21-7 final, 47-14. Overstreet had 17 rushes, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, while Rice had 4 catches for 158 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Jordan had a big night, 7 rushes, 59 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, 1 catch for 17 yards and a touchdown in the air, and an 85-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in the fourth quarter, which we did not see there because the game was in hand, but still, give him the hat trick at that point.
Trifecta.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Southern Virginia's defensive back Mitchell Alessio had led all tacklers with a game-high 12 stops. Also on video here, we have Hampton-Sydney beating Shenandoah 26-0. And before halftime, we were scoreless until the 35-second remaining mark. This capped a 17-play drive that went 98 yards over 7:45. Tanner Bernard to Dylan Costello, 13 yards for the touchdown. That made the halftime score 6-0 Hampton-Sydney. Then about a minute 19 into the second half, Ed Newman takes a 65-yard pass from Tanner Bernard to make it 12-0 Hampton-Sydney. Final score 26-0. Really, when you look at the stats lines in this game, Hampton-Sydney held Shenandoah to just 16 rushing yards and 114 passing yards for Zachary Mathis of Shenandoah, who also had an interception. Tanner Bernard had 3 passing touchdowns, and Malik Frost, running back, had 20 rushes, 74 yards, and a touchdown to go with his 2 touchdowns, I believe, the previous week. Shenandoah linebacker Ben Bergen had a game-high 12 tackles, 2 for loss. Not pictured here, as they say, is Randolph-Macon beating Bridgewater 25-13, and Randolph-Macon quarterback Presley Egbers, he had a big night with 11 for 14 passing and 190 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, but on the ground, 24 rushes, 103, and 1 touchdown. Bridgewater had their running back, Demetrius Gillespie's, have 12 rushes, 113 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown was with 8:16 remaining in the third, pulled them within 5 points, but again, Randolph-Macon pulls out the victory, 25-13. What did you think about this ODAC Friday night action, my friend?
Seems like if you're going to win in the ODAC, it's good to have 2 names for your university, because right now we're looking at Emory and Henry, Randolph-Macon, and Hampton-Sydney, all sitting at 2-0, basically undefeated. And Hampton-Sydney, 0 points allowed in 8 quarters played. They're looking like their kind of long-time rivalry with Randolph-Macon is going to be a big game. But Emory and Henry out there too, the Yellow Jackets. I mean, they could sting somebody if you're not careful.
Wow. You may want to leave for this next game coming up here, because you are hated, I think, in Belton, Texas for many reasons now. Not just what you said, but the fact that it almost came true. Yeah, seriously, my friend. Let's go to the scoreboard here. And it's not in misprint, folks. Mary Hardin Baylor only wins this game against East Texas Baptist 30-28. So at halftime, Mary Hardin Baylor was up 13-7. Halfway through the third quarter, Kadarius Daniels, he takes a 24-yard touchdown pass from Tommy Bowden, makes it 20-7 Mary Hardin Baylor. Then just 2 minutes later, Malik Hamilton, 11-yard run, it's 27-7 Mary Hardin Baylor. I'm stuttering here because, I'm making sure these scores are right as we're developing them, but they were. The reality is This thing became oddly close as East Texas Baptist had DeCarlos Frazier receive a 27-yard touchdown pass from Troy Yauman. That's with 1:19 left in the third quarter, making it 27-14. Then, 3 minutes into the fourth quarter, Tariq Gray from Troy Yauman makes it a 27-21 game. Mary Hardin Baylor leading by 6, but 4 minutes later, Bailey Boudreaux, a 1-yard touchdown run. East Texas Baptist has the lead. So, Mary Hardin Baylor drives. Anthony Avila with 2:12 left kicks this 37-yard field goal. He had a bad day overall, but Avila kicked it in when it mattered, making it 30-28 with 2:12 left. Let's take a quick look at the final drive, though, because East Texas Baptist had a chance. They get to midfield and commit a penalty, make it 1st and 15. Troy Yaman was sacked by Tristan Green of Berry and Baylor back at the 44-yard line, and that really took him out of any contention there. 3rd and 24, 9-yard pass completion of Bailey Badeau. 4th down and 24. Here's the play.
Here it is, 4th down. Need 11 yards. Incomplete. Ball game. Doggone it, drat.
Could not do it. 30-28 final score. I mean, just back and forth really in the fourth quarter. This thing was not that close in the third quarter as Mary Hardin Baylor tried to pull away, but give credit to East Texas Baptist. They kept it somewhat close in the first half as well. So just an overall good effort. You can see the stats on the screen right now, but this, I'm going to let you talk about it right now because you may have to talk and run at this point about Crew winning only by 2. You kind of saw this coming.
Yeah, I mean, the offense that Coach Lee is trying to run isn't clicking yet, and I don't know if it's whether it's the quarterback, it's the young offensive line. They're still trying to figure things out. Something's not quite there yet, but with the talent that they have at receiver, they can hit on some big plays here and there. And so what we saw in this game were a couple of runs. We saw the 27-point run that the Crew went on, and then the 21-point run that East Texas Baptist went on. And, you know, Frank, it's funny because there was a tweet that I saw of one of the ETBU linemen kind of doing the rocket ship to the smaller running back after one of the touchdowns. And a Crew fan was sort of like, well, so what? They lost. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, but at the same time, there's about 235 or 40 other teams in Division III that would be amazed if they could stay within a field goal of this team, especially and put up 28 points on this defense. I mean, it's a huge step for the ETBU Tigers program. Yeah, it's a shame for them that they weren't able to pull it off, but still, it's a little bit of a wake up call for the Crew. They've got some things to work on, and part of that is the kicking game, 0 for 4. But hey, credit. Vila, he came through when he was, the coaches didn't give up on him. There wasn't any benching and all that, and he got the job done, which is really what you need in games like this.
Well, after he kicked the field goal he did against Hardin Simmons last year to win it with no time on the clock, I think you had to have a little patience with him with all he's done for that program. The team that Mary Hardin Baylor beat in week 1, Belhaven, they had to hold off Louisiana College here. Let's talk about this one. At halftime, Belhaven was up 13-3, and then at 4 minutes left in the third quarter, Mayoa Asagunla had a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 20-3 Belhaven. 9:41 left fourth quarter, Louisiana College tries to come roaring back. Kanan Leone with the 8-yard pass from Sal Palermo. It's 20-9 Belhaven at that point. 2 minutes, 4 seconds later, Micah Dunn takes a 60-yard touchdown pass from Palermo. Now it's 20-17 Belhaven. Then Kanan Leone again from Palermo. That's with 4:01 left, and they make the score at that point 24-20 Louisiana College. Now give credit to Belhaven. They could have just rolled over and played dead at this point. No, They get one more chance.
Owens stands tall. A throwback to Foley. Makes the catch. Down the sideline. Breaks a tackle. Touchdown, Belhaven.
That's awesome.
41 yards.
All of the motion going to the right side. Quarterback looks to the right. Sneak Foley out of the back on the opposite side.
Third down and 20 from the 41 with 23 seconds left. It's Brad Foley, a 41-yard touchdown pass from Ben Owens to take back the lead, 27-24. And then, really, the final play of the game was on defense. Fajan Locke with the 45-yard pick 6. He made it 33-24 Belhaven. So the final score does not necessarily denote just how close this ending really was, as Belhaven had to claw back and then hold on in this game. Incredible job by Louisiana College to climb back into this. Palermo with those 3 touchdown passes, 8, 60, and 23 yards. Just overall, with Asagunla's 2 rushing touchdowns, it's tough to explain to some people a game like this and how exciting it was, but when you look at the scoring and the video that we show, it kind of speaks for itself. Let me just finish out here some of the action in the ASC. Hardin-Simmons beats Texas Lutheran 33-14 as it was Mark Reed with a 1-yard touchdown run with 23 seconds left in the second quarter to make it a 26-7 halftime lead. Kyle Jones finished the day 12 for 19 passing, 204, 2 touchdowns as quarterback for Hardin-Simmons, and Perkins led Texas Lutheran with 91 receiving yards and a touchdown in the game. That's Mason Perkins. Also, Howard Payne 53, Sulross State 34 in a score fest. Landon McKinney, the Howard Payne quarterback, 18 for 29, 364 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. And also the running back, Billy Regans, he only had 7 carries for 65 yards, but there's that efficiency we always talk about. 3 rushing touchdowns for him.
Nice.
Good action there again from the ASC. Not quite as exciting as some of the other conferences we look at, or we will look at coming up here. But JB, they got to be proud of some of the closeness now that we're seeing, or at least some competitiveness. It's not just Hardin-Simmons and Mary Hardin-Baylor and they're predestined to meet. It's getting somewhat interesting there.
Yeah, especially given the Belhaven win, because I think Louisiana, after winning their game last weekend, probably came into this with a lot of confidence, and the Blazers look strong. And holy cow, Frank, talk about most improved. The Belhaven video feed was almost as good as like an NFL or a major Division I college game. I mean, it was like 10K or 4K or whatever on the sideline shots, like crystal clear or whatever it is, 8K to whatever. I couldn't believe the picture quality, especially when you think back to that week 1, that cold, rainy day. There was a skeleton crew of students who didn't really know what they were doing shooting the game, and now all of a sudden they have like NFL film shooting this game. It was really fun to watch, and it was exciting to see the Wildcats, claw back and look like they had it in hand, and then all of a sudden the Blazers, who you thought were like the underdogs, get the touchdown with 23 seconds left, and the empathetic pick 6 for the win. Wow, that was great.
Let's talk about the team that is leaving the USA South in a couple seasons for the ODAC. That's Averett. They lost to Brevard 19-10. At halftime, it was 10-0 Averett. Now it's 10-6 in the fourth quarter before Brevard's Damon Rouse had a 4-yard touchdown run. The kick failed, so it's suddenly 12-10 in favor of Brevard. And then Brevard gets Quentin Jackson's pick 6 for 31 yards with 6.5 minutes left to make it 19-10, and that's the end of the scoring there. Brevard wins that game. And, looking at the stats here, it is Eli Carr with a 24 for 32 passing day. It's great efficiency for a quarterback, 212 and 1 touchdown. Also, Jackson in that game finished 21 for 34 for Averett, 152 yards, but 2 interceptions. And Averett's Connor Showalter led all tacklers with 11, including 2 tackles for loss. Not pictured here, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. Methodist 48, Greensboro 14. Methodist outgained Greensboro 565 to 157. In total yardage, and also their quarterback Brandon Bullens was 24 for 35, 376, 3 touchdowns and an interception. The defense held Greensboro to 8 rushing yards in the game. This was the game where the parent, who was the biggest leader, Elizabeth Ellison, of the let us watch our kids play in the USA South. This was her son's school, Greensboro. And they were going to rely on the video feeds to replace the fact of or idea of having parents at the games. Greensboro, we're happy you have a video feed, but you were at sideline level, basically shooting the backs of the sideline the entire time.
Methodist is pretty much the Methodist is sideline the whole time. It was a really poor point of view, especially when you compare it to, let's say, Belhaven's. I mean. Yeah. Come on, guys! You got to try. If you're going to keep the parents and families away, you got to do a better job and put a better product out there for them to be able to see their sons.
especially the away ones are still not going to be in attendance by the rules. So the away families are watching that. That's not fair. That's not right. So let's all do a little bit better. Just put it up, get it up in the air somehow. Get a stanchion or something for the camera. That's all you got to do. It's not that tough out there. Anyway, that's our production advice here. We give it for free.
Get a ladder.
In the SAA, we have two great games to go through here. First, Hendrix at Trinity, Texas. Trinity had a 9-game winning streak, I believe it was, in the regular season coming into this game. But Hendrix in their, let's look at the tone of this game. The first drive for Trinity, 3rd and 7. They're at their own 19-yard line. Wyatt Messick is intercepted by Alec Taylor at the 49-yard line. Interception number 1, folks. That led to Hendrix's first score with 13:08 left in the first quarter. Parker Turley's 1-yard touchdown run to make it 6-0. And the next drive, on a 1st and 20, Tucker Horn had his pass intercepted by Hunter Lawrence of Hendrix. So there's number 2. Now, Thompson Miles Thompson was intercepted back in the ensuing drive, but the halftime score, with all this back and forth and everything, was still just 6-0 Hendrix. First Trinity drive of the second half, guess what happened? Wyatt Messick intercepted by Jacob Bremen at the 40-yard line and returned it to the Trinity 25-yard line. Did not lead to really any points, though, because there were some special teams nightmares, including a bad punt snap for Trinity, a blocked field goal for Hendrix, not pictured here. But still in the third quarter, Trinity ball. Watch this play. This is a game saver. 2nd and 4 at the 13-yard line of Hendrix for Trinity. Wyatt Messick has his pass intercepted by Jacob Bremen at the goal line, and it returned it 4 yards to the Hendrix 4, near the goal line, I should say. So saved the touchdown there. Turley gets his second 1-yard rushing touchdown in the 4th. Not pictured here, but we will picture a 5th interception by Hendrix. 3rd and 2 at the 10-yard line this time. Messick was intercepted by Jacob Bremen again at the Hendrix 5 and returned it a yard. That is all she wrote, 13-3 in favor of Hendrix. 5 interceptions, and that gave them the SAA West title. But they had to wait till the nightcap to see who they would play. We'll talk about that game right now. We'll talk before I let you in on this one. Berry 18, Center 17 in overtime. How did we get there? Halftime was just 3-3 after second quarter field goals were exchanged by the team. So in the third quarter, 5 minutes in, Center's Trenton Dupper had an 11-yard touchdown run to make it 10-3 Center. So we're all saying, hey, how does the tiebreaker work in the SAA as things go into the fourth quarter, deep into the fourth quarter, still at 10-3. Berry, with 4 minutes left, had Cameron Kawa, a 15-yard pass from Gavin Gray. The touchdown made it 10-10. That's how we ended regulation. In overtime, Patrick Edwards had a 25-yard run in the second play of overtime for Center. That made it 17-10 with the extra point. Berry, they got a touchdown pass from Gavin Gray to Trace Wells. They had a decision to make. It's 17-16 in the overtime. Many coaches would not do this. I don't blame Coach K in this case. He went for 2. Cameron Kawa gets the pass from Gavin Gray. 18-17 final in overtime. Berry comes from behind late in this game to win it, and then win it in or to at least tie it, and then win it in overtime to take the SAA East title. And you can see the stats on the screen for this game. JB, we're going to have a lot more on this situation, or both these games, in just a little bit, but this was like that action that you were praying would happen in the spring, so that we kind of knew for sure spring football mattered to these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's great that this game came down to a 1-point overtime. And the craziest stat on the Berry Center game for me, Frank, it was almost a nearly identical number of plays and yardage for both teams. I mean, obviously almost the exact same number of points as well. Berry had 62 plays for 339 yards compared to Center's 63 for 327. I mean, talk about evenly matched. Both of these teams, went at it like it was a championship semifinal, and it was probably one of the best games of the entire spring season, and maybe one of the best games we get to see in 2021 period. I mean, obviously the fall is still a little ways off, but fantastic semifinal, and it should be a great matchup against a very strong Berry team and a very strong Hendrix defense.
One other game in the SAA, Austin 27, Millsap 17. Really look at Millsap's defensive back, Mikhail Massey, with a game-high 9 tackles, including 1 for loss. Kind of a sharp game, back and forth game. Unfortunately, these teams had just struggled all season long coming into this game, but they will be placing for crossover games at War Memorial Stadium, as we discussed earlier. In the HCAC, or the HCAC, the Reddit game, as it's being called, it's really, Franklin 55, Anderson 48. A lot of people thought this was a college basketball score coming in when it came in across the wires. And here's what we got here. Franklin was up 20-0 to start the second quarter, then gets Dylan McKinney's 71-yard touchdown reception from Dane Andrews to make it 27-0 Franklin. Halftime was 34-14 Franklin. They come out again. Spencer Wright, a 26-yard touchdown run. He made the score 41-14 Franklin. It's over, right? No, 48-21 late in the third. Anderson's Zach Talent from Tyson Harley, 19-yard touchdown pass, made it 48-28 Franklin. Now 48-35 midway through the fourth quarter. Talent takes a 91-yard pass from Tyson Harley, 48-41 Franklin. But Franklin was able to bounce back here and hold off Anderson with a 55-yard touchdown pass to Jarrett Gibson from Dane Andrews, 3:40 left. That made it 55-41. Anderson did get another touchdown, but it was too little too late. 55-48. They combined for 1,317 total yards. Tyson Harley, as I take a gulp here after going through all that, went 45 for 66, 547 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for Anderson. The Grizz, though, Dane Andrews went 24 for 33, 463 yards, including that 55-yarder earlier to Jarrett Gibson that kind of iced the game. That's one of his 5 touchdowns. 5 wide receivers went over 100 yards in the game. Also, Bluffton continuing their winning ways from the fall. Wins against Manchester 49-14. They outgained 424 to 253. Bluffton defense had 8 turnovers, 6 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. 3 of those interceptions and 1 fumble recovery for a 65-yard touchdown went to cornerback Montez Archer Jr. That's a defensive performance, folks, on that day. Rose Holman 52, Defiance 6, as Rose Holman's defense held Defiance to -9 rushing yards, and Michael Stevens with a game-high 12 tackles plus 1 sack. 2 more games to talk about briefly here. DePaul 35, Ohio Wesleyan, and the NCAC who joined the action here. Basically, we have Austin Womack, the quarterback from Ohio Wesleyan, finishing the day 22 for 40, passing 278, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Shane Quinn led all tacklers also for Ohio Wesleyan with 10, 2 tackles for loss, and an 18-yard interception return. Finally, last but not least, certainly, Whitworth 30, Puget Sound 12. A 5th touchdown, is it, this season now for him? Yep. Ethan Peliquin, our guest from a couple shows ago for Whitworth, he got things off pretty early and pretty good for Whitworth in that 30-12 victory. Varela, though, he still had 206 yards for Puget Sound, 146 on the ground there. It's, Jaden Pruitt, 13 for 21, 208, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but it was enough to help get Whitworth to the win. JB, more from you in a second. I just want to tell everyone that was crunch time for Week 5. Whew. Take it away, buddy. Those last 4 games. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because, our first sort of recap crunch time, we had, 12 or 15 games over 3 weeks. Well, this weekend we're getting close to 20. On week 5, it was almost 20 games. And now coming up week 6, we're going to be getting close to 30 games. So there's just more and more games starting to get underway. We're really getting to the meat of this spring season. But a couple things that sort of jumped out to me, Frank, I think, other than what we talked about with the ODAC and the ASC and the SAA, really in the Heartland, we see a couple of teams, that can put up a ton of points in Franklin and Bluffton. Rose Holman kind of taking care of Defiance. It's hard to tell really what their story is just yet, but for the most part, it's good to see some new conferences out there like the NCAC. They're going to be having little onesie-twosies, kind of like what the Northwestern Conference has done since the beginning of February. They have one more week of action, so I believe we'll see Whitworth and our friend Ethan Pelican one more time before they call it. But just some really exciting, high-scoring games, tons of interceptions. And the other thing that I kind of noticed as well, Frank, not just the struggles that Avila had for Mary Hardin Baylor, and maybe he should take this as a positive. Lots of bad kicking, missed extra points in almost every single game this past weekend. Multiple missed extra points, some failed 2-point tries. College kicking not always the easiest thing to do. So if you have a good one, just keep giving them a chance because you're going to need the points sometimes in these close games.
Let's talk about our first championship game coming up in the SAA. The ASC is slightly delayed here, obviously, because of the weather issues they experienced. The SAA is going strong here as Hendrix and Berry will be going at it. Hendrix sort of a home-ish team when you look at the geography of how this is playing out. We'll talk about that inside these interviews. But Matt Scirto, the junior, and Miles Thompson, the redshirt senior, joined us. Talk a little offense and defense for the Hendrix team that wins 13-3. That close one against a team that in Trinity that had that streak we were talking about. They kind of got a little bit of attention for the fact that they had one of the longest Division III regular season winning streaks, or overall winning streaks, I should say, coming into last weekend, and they lost the game ultimately to Hendrix, or Hendrix basically intercepted the game away from them with those 5 INTs.
Yeah.
Let's go to these interviews. So this is a rarity. We have a socially distanced interview here with our Hendrix players, redshirt senior quarterback Miles Thompson and junior defensive back Matthew Scirto. Guys, thanks for joining us. Congratulations. Boy, I guess I got to start with the defensive back, Miles. So give me 1 second here with Matt, because that game was sort of a defensive battle. So I got to start there a little bit. Matt, I think, 5 interceptions in the game for Hendrix, if I remember correctly. Starting with the first drive in both halves that you guys were on defense. Did you see this game playing out that way? And let's throw aside the idea that you're a defensive player, okay? But did you see the game really forming in that way, coming into it against a team in Trinity, Texas that can put up points historically? We know that, but obviously you guys shut them out from the end zone when that game was all said and done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely. You could feel the energy in the air before the game, and we kind of knew honestly, that we were gonna come out with a win. We just had that mindset going into it. So it was definitely, we could feel that, we were definitely more ready and we wanted the win more than them. So yeah, we definitely felt confident going into it.
Miles, you had a very strong game, over 200 yards of total offense. But as a quarterback, when you're also struggling to find the end zone, how do you keep your offensive unit focused to keep on executing, to keep going up against this tough Tigers defense? And you're going to face another tough defense on Saturday night. How do you keep the guys going here? Sometimes even if you're not getting the points that you want to put up on the board.
Yeah, well, obviously playing a team like Trinity, you want to score as many points as possible. But, playing defenses like those guys, and especially Berry, they're very good. So sometimes you just got to realize it's not about scoring. You got to play the field position. Sometimes you got to play you got to have good punting so the defense doesn't start backed up. But regardless, the goal for us going into this next week is we have to be able to capitalize off more of the defense's turnovers.
Miles, this one goes especially to you. You're a redshirt senior, as we're kind of pointing out in our graphic here, and that means that you've had some extra time technically already at the school, and then we have this whole COVID situation play out. a lot of guys came into spring ball not necessarily feeling like spring ball was going to be this time to throw it all in and, compete like hell and all that stuff because, what championship is there to play for? Maybe a conference championship. Talked with Coach White about that last week from Birmingham Southern. But for you, what was your mindset coming into the season? And did you sort of sit down with your team and say, look, I don't know if I'll be back next year, and you can tell us if you are or aren't or don't want to disclose. That's up to you fully. But did you have this conversation about the idea that you guys wanted to compete hard this season and not play this whole, well, it's just kind of like an extended spring practice with pads and a little bit of competition? Well, what did you do with your team as kind of the leader of that team, especially the offense, to get this team in this position this season?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, a lot of the guys on the team, especially a few of our seniors, most of us aren't coming back next year. And so we came together and it was like, this is our last chance, our last opportunity to get a ring with the group we have. And I feel like as a team and as a unit, we have a really good group on offense and defense. And I mean, we all just told ourselves at the beginning of the year, we didn't get a fall, but that doesn't mean we don't have our season still. We still have an opportunity to win a ring and get a championship. So that's what we need to do.
Matt, one of the things that we've really enjoyed about the spring season is getting to watch a lot of these great SAA games. They've probably been the most entertaining, exciting contests that we've seen. What do you think is it about this, sort of this conference and the brand of football that you guys play that brings forth all these really close, tough fought, and really for the fans like Frank and I, they're just a lot of fun to watch?
I think a lot of it has to do with just taking advantage with the games that we have. We didn't get the chance to play in the fall, so I mean we have that chip on our shoulder that going into every game like it's our first game and going into like it's going to be our best game. So I think that's why it's so entertaining to watch and even play in.
This roster, you guys are kind of a microcosm of the roster in the school. We kind of have what is it like, JB, a Texarkana crew going on here, a little bit of Texas, a little bit of Arkansas approach to this. Hendrix is a school that some people have obviously heard of outside of football, but you guys are getting a lot more exposure right now with what's going on with the SAA. And they don't really know where it's located, what it's about. Why'd you even pick the school? I'm going to throw it to Miles first here. Miles, and I mean, you've had some good time there, obviously. Why did you go to Hendrix? Why'd you stay the course? And tell folks about the charm of Hendrix College that I know exists down there.
Well, first and foremost, Hendrix is in Conway, Arkansas. It's about 30 minutes north of Little Rock. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful campus. It's a small school, liberal arts. It's a very good education. That's for one of the reasons I went there. And I would just say the best thing about Hendrix is just being on campus, and it's just a beautiful place to be. And it's just not even playing football. It's a great place to be.
Matt, you got some more time left there, but you share those sentiments?
No, yeah, for sure. I think that's the first thing that I noticed, especially coming down here and visiting, was it's just a beautiful place. The people are great. The coaching staff is amazing. And that's what helped me stay the course, especially through this spring season. Just knowing that, we have such a great team and such a great coaching staff that they're just going to stay the course as well and keep going, moving forward. So.
Well, I guess in certain respects, kind of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium, the Raymond James. You guys are, you earned your way there, but it just so happened that the championship game is scheduled to be in Little Rock, so it's kind of in your backyard, home game. And I know that there have been some, not necessarily concessions, but there have been some arrangements made for parents and people to be able to actually attend the game in a safe fashion. So. I know that the fan attendance has been an issue for sports kind of across the board, but at least it sounds like, your families and friends should have the chance to see you guys play. Do you think that well, first off, have either one of you guys played at War Memorial Stadium, maybe at high school or earlier in your college careers? And what does it mean to really have this big stage on Saturday night, pretty much just down the street from campus?
We'll start with Miles on this one.
I have not played at War Memorial Stadium before, so I'm from Texas, so I've never gotten an opportunity to play at a stadium like that. But I did play pretty big high school football, so I got a chance to play in front of a lot of fans on bigger stages in that setting. So I think it'll be pretty nice to get a chance to play in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, I got to stop you there, because this idea that Texas high school football stadiums are anything to shake a stick at is not a notion that's true. Mary Hardin Baylor used to play in a high school stadium before they built the cathedral down there, and it was quite a stadium. So I have a funny feeling you're not going to feel too strange in that stadium coming up this weekend. What about you, Matt?
I actually have played at War Memorial. My sophomore year, I went to Harbor High School in Springdale, Arkansas. We went to the state championship, but we actually lost there and got runner-up. So I definitely have a chip on my shoulder. Definitely want to go into there and just come back for revenge and hopefully get that ring. So.
Okay, guys, let's talk a little X's and O's before we move to the shout-out mode that we normally do here. You've got this game coming up against Team Berry that has had some tremendous success, more than me saying it. What do you think we're going to see in this game? A lot of people think we're going to see low scoring, defensive struggle. Matt's probably rooting for that to happen. But, I mean, overall, from the film you've seen, without giving away the house secrets on this, anybody tuning in, what do you think we'll end up with in terms of, let's say, Matt, give us a little bit of judgment on the offense we'll see from Berry, and Miles a little bit on the defense we'll see from Berry coming up here from what you've seen already. We'll start with Matt.
Based on the film, they're pretty straightforward. They definitely run their stuff very well, and even though they might not do a whole bunch of stuff, they definitely know what they're doing. They run it right, and they wait for us to mess up. So, it's going to be a pretty good one, but I think that our defense will be able to come up and see what they're doing and be able to adapt and run what they're running.
And Miles, what about their defense? What are you looking at? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but a little bit more in depth here.
Their defense, kind of similar to their offense. They don't do a whole bunch of stuff, but they don't make a lot of mistakes, and they play extremely well, and they play extremely together, and they're very fine tuned. But the goal is, as always, in every week, we want to score as many points as possible. And at the end of the day, if they score 40, we want to score 42. If they score 7, we want to have 8. So we just want to be able to have more points than them at the end of the day, no matter what.
They kind of subscribed to that philosophy this past Saturday themselves, going for 2 to win the game and just getting that extra point to win it 18-17. You guys, though, in a tight match, 13-3 against Trinity. So interesting that the Fun and Gun Conference ended up with 2 tight games to settle out the divisions ultimately last weekend. We'll see what it leads to this next weekend. And JB, I'll let you do the honors for our favorite part of every student-athlete interview we do.
Yeah, so it's been, like I said, it's been great being able to catch some SAA ball this spring, and we'll definitely be keeping track of you guys in the fall as well. But as part of this show's 13-season tradition, we'd love to give shout-outs to the student-athlete guests that are on the show, to any friends, family, former teammates, coaches, whoever might be watching. So we'll start off with Miles, and then we'll hand it off to Matt to close us out with some shout-outs.
I like to give a shout out to my parents and my brother. They supported me through everything. And then I like to give a shout out to the O-line. We wouldn't be anywhere without them. They've been holding it down this whole year.
Yeah, they have. That's for sure. And what about you, Matt? Go ahead with your shout outs.
I just want to shout out my parents and my sister, and also the DB group out there. Let's get a ring this weekend.
A lot of fun talking with them. So you're going to begin to see a trend here of question we try to ask, we try to do it respectfully about seniors, whether or not they're going to remain, for another year. You heard some pretty good honesty there from Miles that the seniors at Hendrix, a lot of them will not be returning. A guy like him, he's a redshirt senior already. So, that would be a sixth year most likely, the way, the whole math would work. So, I can't blame him for that. Hendrix is a very good school academically and cost-wise it shows in terms of dollars and cents. So keep that in mind. Start to think about which schools are seeing seniors commit versus not commit to coming back overall. You may start to see some trends. We'll talk a little bit more about it later on. You'll see where I'm going with that. But then we had our friends at Berry join us. They're going to be playing Hendrix in Arkansas. And first off, Gavin Gray, their quarterback touchdown maker, how's that? He gave them the game-winning touchdown and 2-point conversion from his arm in that game against Center with that comeback, and we talked to him for a little bit. Gavin, congratulations on what's been a great spring season so far. Obviously, you take nothing for granted right now with what's been happening with the last year of COVID and whatnot. But how does it feel to know that you're going to be playing for essentially a championship coming up basically Saturday evening, big game versus Hendrix? And, did you even think this was going to be possible when we were standing in, let's say, last August as everything kind of collapsed around us with Division III football?
I know we were really excited to be able to play. It was just the best thing to be able to play. Last fall with the season getting canceled, we didn't know that the spring season was even going to happen. And, with the way everything was looking at around Christmas time, the cases kind of getting higher, we didn't know. And for a second, we kind of got discouraged. But I just got to tip our hats to the SAA, all the coaches here, all the administrators. They've done a great job of, following the guidelines, doing everything by the books, and it's helped us get to where we are now. And, it's crazy to think that we didn't even know if we were going to have a season, and now all of a sudden we're playing for a championship. So it's just a blessing.
Yeah, definitely. And in a way, this game that you guys just won in overtime on Saturday night might actually be a great prep because, a real defensive struggle there for a while. What were you telling your teammates in the huddle while, really took some time to get your offense going, but you finally made the plays you needed to do to win the game at the end? And it might be the case against this Hendrix team, which, similar to Center, seems to have a pretty tough defensive front.
We were just telling each other to just do your job. They weren't doing anything crazy that we hadn't seen before. It was just a matter of executing, what we needed to do. There was a couple of times that I missed an assignment that I could have done better. And so just telling each other to trust the process. We're figuring this defense out. We're figuring what plays go best against this defense. So it's really just trust each other, trust the coaches, and everything will work out. So.
Well, the trust is working, that's for sure so far here. Gavin, you had kind of a long wait here. You come in as the SAA Newcomer of the Year, I think they call it, in 2019. I think you got the starting job in part of the last half of the season. You had reps in every game, but it looks like your numbers obviously amped up toward the end of that season. Then COVID happens. And, for those out there that don't fully understand the rigors of what we're going through here and what this all has meant, how tough was it for you to return to basically 2019 type form now with all the restrictions you were under with COVID and whatnot?
Yes, in the fall with all the restrictions and stuff, we were able to practice, but it wasn't like a regular season. It was 4 groups, and you would go 2 groups at a time, split on either side of the field. So I wasn't really getting to work with the whole team. We didn't even get to take team reps. So coming into camp this season, or this winter, I guess, it was kind of getting back to the basics, doing everything that we would do in a normal camp, just going through that same type of preparation for the season instead of, because I mean it was over 400 days since we had played, so just trying to do everything like we did 2 years ago, I guess would be the case. So.
Yeah, and it seems like, I mean, you guys sort of picked up where you left off in many respects. You were a championship caliber team in 2019 going into this game at the War Memorial Stadium on Saturday night. I mean, is there sort of a different feel, playing for a championship only, 4 or so weeks into like a shortened sort of protracted season versus it would be kind of going through the grind of what you did in 2019? Or is it at the end of the day, a game's a game? You're just playing and trying to win and get that trophy back on the shelf.
I think that to a certain extent it's kind of similar. Obviously the games are more important this year, and we kind of felt that you have to win every single game because you don't know if you're going to play or not. Because 2 weeks ago we had a game get canceled, and we didn't know if we were possibly even going to be able to finish the season. So with that game getting canceled, it just put more importance on the last 2 games and what we needed to do in those last 2 games to get to the championship game. So I think there is an added pressure, but at the same time, we're just trying to go out there, have fun, and win. So that's really all there is to it.
Quick question for you. I mean, Calhoun, Georgia, I think is home for you. It is not exactly what I would call D3 country down there. And yet you end up going to a D3 school up the street, up the road, however you want to look at it, down there. What made you decide to go D3? I mean, to what degree were you aware of even D3 when you were coming out of high school, and why Berry ultimately?
So to be honest, I didn't really know that much about D3 football coming out of high school. I had heard of Berry, I'd heard of a couple other Division III schools, but I really didn't know until I came on a visit to Berry. And, once I got on campus, I realized just how beautiful of a campus this is. Once I talked to the coaches, I realized they were just like my high school coaches. They do things the right way. They're building a great program here at Berry. And that's just something that I was used to coming out of high school. And so it's something I fell in love with here at Berry. It felt like home away from home in a way. So.
Well, Gavin, one of the things we like to do for the student-athlete guests of the show, and hopefully you'll enjoy some more In the Huddle episodes in the fall. We certainly have really had a blast watching the SAA games in this spring season. Probably the best overall from an entertainment value, I'll say, out of any other conference that's out there. So congrats to that. And our little tradition here is we like to offer shout outs for the student guests to any teammates, high school or otherwise, coaches, same thing, family members, whoever you want to throw a shout out to. I'll give you a hint. Some quarterbacks usually thank their offensive line first, but just, you can figure out what to do. But Gavin Gray, the floor is yours.
I just want to give a shout out again to the administrators, the coaches here at Berry. It's all this whole season has been possible just because of them. My offensive line is doing a great job. They're really young. They're developing each week, getting better each week. My receivers, they show up to play every single game. I know I can trust them. Offense coordinators, coaches, they do a great job calling plays, getting us prepared each week. And I obviously have to thank my parents. They try to get to every single game. It's kind of hard with COVID, but I just love playing in front of my family. So.
And then, you know what? We had to talk to his coach. He comes from Grove City, and our friend Todd Gibson, the athletic director there, told us that Tony was a 4-year starter in college. They were teammates. 1 year at corner, 1 year at safety, 1 year at outside linebacker, 1 year at inside linebacker, if you remember correctly. Unreal player, great competitor. No surprise he is winning. He's a winner, and he has that Grove City in him, pushing to play. Tell him I said hello. And so I'm sure Coach K is watching this right now and hearing that Tony sends his best. But here's our interview with Coach K. Coach K, because there's no way I'm going to ever get your name right after all these years. Thanks for joining us. We just talked to Gavin. I I can kind of see, without even asking you, why you went for 2 in overtime. But let's discuss it in terms of, the stature he has there and the maturity that he's showing as a sophomore. That had to play into your decision, and also the idea, let's get this darn game over already and not risk, what's happening next.
Well, Frank, I was hoping you weren't going to ask that question, because I got a lot of comments from a lot of texts that night saying, "Man, you have a lot of guts making that call." Honestly, it went through my mind after they scored first, and I was adding it up in my own head. We have a tiebreaker system in our conference, and the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. So at the time, we're 2-0, Center's 1-1, Birmingham Southern's 2-1. So if all three of us finished 2-1, the first tiebreaker is points allowed. So, we're doing the math in our head, and we had 31 points essentially to work with in the game. So we knew heading into overtime, and I think I may not be exactly right, but I think Center had to beat us by 12. So going into overtime, that was going to be a difficult task for them. And we couldn't give up more than 31 points or else and lose, or Birmingham Southern would get the number 1 seed. So I'm asking all of our coaches on the headset, we call a timeout and say, okay, let's make sure we get all the math correct here. It makes sense for us to go for 2. So during that time, we figure that out. And that's one of the things over the last year where you never thought you'd be on the sidelines, in overtime, trying to figure out the formula that it takes to get to the championship game.
This is from my Coach White interview last week. As he explained it, this is how much I got on paper to understand all this mumbo jumbo. It made no sense to us, but you know what? As long as you figured it out, that's all that mattered.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Frank, because I actually listened to the interview last week, and no lie, I'm jogging in our stadium. I'm doing stadium steps, all right, and I'm listening to the interview on the phone. And I thought to myself, man, I better figure this out before Saturday. And as a coach, you want to win the game, all right? And I hope that it wouldn't get to that point. But, Center is one of the class acts of our conference, and we knew it was going to be a battle. This is the 3rd straight time we've played at Center because of the abnormalities of the schedule. So we knew it was going to be a difficult game. But honestly, that's what went into it. We figured it makes the most sense right now, even if we didn't make the 2-point conversion, that we would still go to the championship game. Now, obviously, as a competitor, you want to win the game, but it became a no-brainer after that. So I wish you wouldn't have asked me that question, because now the secret's out. But that's what went into it. But to answer your point,
makes sense.
And I know you talked to Gavin. Gavin's a winner. Gavin played right up the road at Calhoun High School. He was a state championship quarterback, won a state championship as a quarterback his junior year in high school, comes from a great program. So we have absolute faith and trust in him. And, I'm more of a defensive guy. And, what I value in quarterbacks is, and we have a young offensive line, and Center has a tremendous front. And he was standing in the pocket, getting hit a lot during the game, but got right back up and never flinched. So, it's an easier call when you have a guy like that.
Well, speaking of Gavin, I asked him a question. I'll throw it right back to you, Coach. I mean, it's only been a 3-game spring season, but yet here you are. Saturday night, you're going to go to the War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock, Arkansas, to play for the spring championship. Does a championship game after a short season feel any different than one that was a long grind, or is it basically, like you said, you're just playing to win?
This has been a grind. There's no doubt about that. We started January 11th, so this is our 9th week of practicing, and we played only 3 games so far. So, we've got a lot of quality work. I mean, especially Gavin mentioned it when you spoke to him. We're very young on offense. I mean, young up front, young at receiver, young at tailback. So what a wonderful opportunity for our guys to grow and play games. And, I get this question a lot, does it mean as much because it's a truncated season and in the spring? Absolutely. I mean, there's every game in our conference. I can tell you, and I bet you if you I know you talked to Coach White at Birmingham Southern, our game versus them, you wouldn't have known whether we're playing in the middle of February or the middle of November. I mean, that's the atmosphere, the intensity, the competitiveness, and that's why we play this game. And I don't see any difference. And especially, Saturday night, there was no difference of us playing center in early March than it would have been in the fall. So, that's what a breath of fresh air that is, to get back out in the field and be competitive.
Coach, we talk about it, the profile this is allowing the SAA to have, because it's kind of the ASC, the SAA, and some things sprinkled in between. But the fact that you do have the spotlight and you're utilizing the spotlight as a conference as well as you are, does this not help the SAA down the road in terms of just being able to recruit, to help you guys for next fall, in terms of how seriously it seems like the players and the coaches all took this ultimately and rose to the occasion? Put into your own words what playing this spring season, even as early as you guys did, will mean to the SAA and to Berry ultimately.
I mean, that's a great point, Frank. I think it's a tremendously positive opportunity for us. And, I've been fortunate. I've served on the NCAA Division III Championship Committee for now 4 years. And from having grown up in the Northeast, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, went to Grove City College. And, there's just a higher concentration, obviously, of Division III in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest. So when I'm on these national calls, a lot of people don't know about the SAA, and what a wonderful opportunity for us to showcase what a great conference this is. I mean, there's tremendous coaches in this conference. For example, at our place, we're in Rome, Georgia. If you drew a 3-hour radius around, drew a circle and a 3-hour radius around Rome, Georgia, you're hitting some of the best football in the country. So it's a tremendous advantage to showcase our conference. And I feel like overall, I haven't seen all the games, but I feel like we've been able to take advantage of that as well. And I can only hope they'll help us more on a national stage. And, I was on the committee 2 years ago when us and Center both went in 2018 in our conference. So hopefully when those situations arise in the future, people look back and say, hey, that's a quality football in that conference. And certainly we'll all benefit from that.
Well, certainly the Vikings have benefited from having you on board as a coach. I know you've only been with the program for a few seasons now. You kind of started it from scratch. How did you do it so fast? It's pretty impressive. Here you are. You're making the playoffs. You're playing for championships in less than a decade. You don't have to give away your secret recipe, Coach. But I mean, is it a combination of just a lot of different factors with the administration, like you said, the local talent, or is it sort of all the above?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned it already. I mean, number one, having played Division III football at Grove City, and my whole coaching career has been at the NCAA Division III level. So there's certain things, obviously, you need to have success, and it starts first with an administration that's committed to being successful out in the field, for giving you what you need, from our president, Steve Briggs, all the way down to Vice President Debbie Haida, our Director of Athletics, Angel Mason, and all the people that came before. They wanted to do this thing. They wanted to start it in 2013. They wanted to do it the right way. And so that's first and foremost. We have tremendous facilities. I mentioned before, I mean, we have an outstanding area to recruit, some of the best football in the country. So that certainly helps. And we've been fortunate here that we've been able to have a lot of staff continuity as well. For example, our offensive coordinator, Rich Duncan, him and I have been together since we started this program. And Rich's experience has been at the Division III level. We just lost our defensive coordinator before this season, who's been with us since the beginning, but then our new defensive coordinator we're able to promote from within. So we've had staff continuity coupled with great support from the administration, coupled with a tremendous recruiting area and a great product to sell. I know I heard Coach White's interview last week, and our conference is a high academic conference. So it's not just selling the football piece. Certainly, way more important than that is the academic experience you're going to get here as well, coupled with the football. So when you add all that up, there's no secret sauce. I mean, there's a lot of positives going for us right now for sure.
Okay, last question for you. You're a Grove City guy. Give me your grade on how Coach DiDonato is doing up at Grove City.
He is doing outstanding. I mean, him and I have, our paths never crossed. When I was there, that's been a while. But I ran into him a couple times. I mean, he was a tremendous player there, and he's really got that rolling. I'm a proud alum. Although I tried to, their AD is him and I were teammates. So, maybe someday we can have a game. Sometime maybe we can get out of the South, and I would prefer to have them come down here in the beginning of September when it's about 95 degrees. That might be a better option than us going up there. But he's doing a great job.
I will DM the AD later, who was on the show. Don't forget a few weeks back, and let him know the invitation has been handed down or up, or however you want to look at it. But listen, good luck this week against Hendrix for this title. I have a feeling no matter what, this is going to be a fun game, just like the rest of the season has been. And kudos to you guys, kudos to the SAA, kudos to everybody involved. This has been a treat, and it really did jumpstart all of us and our emotions behind getting behind spring football as much as we have. So thank you to you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. It will be a fun game, and Hendrix and Berry started in this conference at the same time, so they do an outstanding job over there. Buck Buchanan is, I think, a personal. I would classify him as a personal friend of mine. So hopefully it'll be a fun time Saturday night.
Fun interviews there, JB. So Gavin Gray, very mature, very poised, a player, interviewee, whatever you want to say. And, Coach K admits part of the reason they go for 2 ultimately is that maturity, that poise that he has. But I think they also just want to be done with it. It would have taken a lot to really get to that whole you let the other team score too many points thing. It would have taken basically a third or fourth overtime to really get there. But I think really, long story short, do you really want to play extra overtimes with the spring season that you didn't even necessarily know you were going to play in the first place? You might not be fully conditioned to go much longer as a team. I don't blame him for ending the game one way or another right there. And it tells us that we're going to have a hell of a matchup coming up here Saturday evening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be one of those situations where it might pan out very much similar to what we saw in these semifinal matchups, where it's a defensive struggle and it comes down to some field position. But then again, maybe with the last championship game, it's going to be a shootout. So who knows? It's hard to tell. But I feel like both of these teams are very strong defensively, and it's going to come down to probably what we've seen a lot of this spring, that turnovers do kind of shift the momentum of these games. Kind of makes sense, and it would. So it'll be ultimately who can, kind of going back to what Coach White told us the week before, who can execute the game plan the best. Maybe a slight advantage for Hendrix in the sense that they're kind of the home team being so close to campus, but the flip side is that Berry's had more experience in the NCAA playoffs, and I know Coach Kunczewski is going to be scheming up some kind of interesting defensive stuff to try to keep Miles, Thompson, and company in check. So it should be a great matchup either way, and it's exciting to feel like this championship game feel, and talking to these guys, that they all really want this hardware, this ring, this championship. This is for real. This is not some bogus spring football. Who cares? Tell these kids that this game doesn't mean anything. It's going to be a great big stadium in Little Rock. It's going to be a great Saturday night sort of feature for this whole entire weekend.
So let's look at the schedule coming up for Week 6. I'll walk through it with you here as we have so many games we'll highlight on the screen and just kind of point out a couple features here. The ODAC again starts out on Friday night, but this time with some company in the OAC. We'll talk more about the OAC in 1 second. And the USA South even has a game, Averett at Methodist at 6 o'clock on Friday night. Then on Saturday, more American Southwest Conference action, as you would expect. Hardin-Simmons Howard Payne is an interesting game. It could be somewhat close if Howard Payne can keep up their offense the way they've been trying to over the last couple of weeks, especially that they've played. The SAA games that we've kind of beaten the dead horse on already. Trinity at Birmingham Southern, or Trinity versus Birmingham Southern, I should say. We're all in the same venue. That's the 2-seed game, and Berry versus Hendrix in the 1-seed game, the championship game. USA South more action. The HCAC has 4 games. The NCAC with 1 game. Northwest Conference with, I think, their final game coming up, although we're checking to see if it's still on. We think it is. But then we're joined by the NJAC now. Coming back out to look at me with my microphones blocking Nation there, Wolverine Nation. Wesley in the Route 13 showdown hosting Salisbury. I believe that's Wesley's only home game technically as of right now. Yep, we'll see if that changes. William Patterson at Christopher Newport, Montclair at Kane. Then Sunday we also have 2 games, the SAA 3rd and 4th place games that you see right there. So overall, JB, the schedule poses some interesting stuff at us. I don't know if these games will be as close as what we saw this past weekend, but we didn't necessarily expect some of the matchups to be close that we got in Week 5 to be that close. So, you know what? Watch and see. Watch some quality football here and see where we go with that. One game we will be watching out for, just to see the return of the Purple Raiders back in the field. Mount Union at Muskingum. And you know what? Folks said we would never get a Mount Union guest on our show for the various stuff that happened in the past. Let me say one thing. I think COVID taught us all not to take family and relationships that we have in this world for granted, good and bad, and to sort of make amends when possible on a lot of stuff. And Coach Dartt, I know, has been wanting to make sure that he had a better pathway with D3FB.com, who I assist with, and I think he appeared on the Around the Nation podcast earlier this year. Or last year, rather. And then, we reached out to our friend Lenny Reich, the SID over at Mount Union, and he said, hey, I want you to talk to Kordell Ford, defensive back, although you'll hear that discussion in a second about his exact position, senior captain for Mount Union. He's a great player, and I think he'll start off the reemergence of some Mount Union pluses here on our show well. And I think you're going to agree, Kordell's quite an impressive individual, as you hear here, talking about the restart of Mount Union football. Kordell, thanks for joining us. Thanks to Lenny Reich right off the bat here for getting us all together here because I don't believe we've ever had a Mount Union guest on our actual podcast before, and it's great to have the Purple Raiders on board here with us. So thank you, Lenny. But Kordell, Mount Union football, it seems like a very unusual circumstance when you think about it. New head coach. The word Karis isn't technically in the whole discussion right now, even though their imprint is obviously there. What are your feelings here? And I mean, it took a little bit of a delayed start to get this to work. So, how's the team been feeling about this big delay before getting back on the field?
Honestly, everybody, obviously we wanted to play. We go through all of the fall seeing, high schools and, FBS schools getting to play, and we're wondering why we're not getting to play. It's like everybody else is kind of getting to, and we're seeing these guys play, why can't we? And, we go through all the fall semester being told, be patient, you guys, it'll come, you guys' time will come. And now that it's finally here, you can feel in the air every time we step out on the practice field or in the weight room, guys are getting ready and, we're excited.
Yeah, I imagine. And first off, Kordell, I just want to say congratulations on being named one of the team captains for this spring season. I know that's a very big honor. But you're kind of used to some big time stuff. You played at Massillon Washington High School, one of the national high school powers out there. You've been with Mount Union, and I guess over your career, the only you've won a national title, and the only 2 losses that you've ever seen on the football field have been to the ultimate national champions. Is it weird kind of going into this spring season though, knowing that there's no national championship in the offering for the Purple Raiders? And I know that on your Twitter feed, in the summertime before the 2020 season, you guys were jacked up to go win another ring and all that. How does the mindset change as you go into a game against Muskingum, who traditionally, let's face it, you guys have typically scored over 50 points and allowed them to 10 points or less. How do you get pumped up for this? I mean, is the long wait really what's helping you guys focus in and want to really do your best this Friday night?
Yeah, I would for sure credit the long wait to this. So just a quick little story. Friday night we had a scrimmage with the offense, and we went through. It was a pregame type feel. So we had the music going, and we had our pregame stretches and pregame warm ups, and I had pregame jitters, and I feel like everybody else on the team had the same feel. I think we just want to go out there and finally get to play a game. We don't care who it's against. We're just excited to finally get to play, and we're just all excited, like I said.
Coach Dartt is kind of an unknown quantity to some people out there, not to those that know Division III football well. But, I mean, can you tell if there are any butterflies for him with this prolonged wait to take the field for the first time as head coach of the Purple Raiders? And what will people see different from your perspective about the imprint he's going to leave on this program or lead this program with over the first season or mini season we've got here? What is the Coach Dartt philosophy versus, let's say, the Coach Kara's philosophy? Is there really any difference you can tell?
So with Coach Dartt, you won't really see too many emotions right now. But we all kind of know it's his first game, and everything. Coach Vince Karras and Coach Larry Karras left before him. He doesn't want to be, a reason there's any drop off. So I know he has to have a little butterflies. He tries not to show it, but he does. But I don't think anything will be too different. Coach Dartt played under LK and coached under VK, so he's kind of taken everything they've done, and you see it in practices, and you see it in the way we go about lifting and film. So I don't think anybody would be able to tell there's too much of a difference. There isn't much from my perspective that I can see.
All right, Kordell. Not to put you too much on the spot, but you are a senior. But as we all know, there is the added year of eligibility. You don't need to name names or necessarily even give us a hint on what you decide to do. But I imagine that one of the considerations following the spring season is who's coming back in the fall. I know the size of a roster of a Mount Union, that can be a lot of guys. So how has it been with you kind of speaking with your own family about your own situation and some of the other senior players who have to make a determination after the end of the spring?
So for me, I'm just going to be upfront about it. I am coming back in the fall. I just want to put that out there. But a majority of the seniors now, I think there's maybe one or two that I've talked to who said, they just want to finish out these 5 games and, graduate and move on, because it does kind of suck coming back for next semester. But a majority of the seniors I've talked to have said, they're coming back if they're playing these 5 games. So.
What's interesting about this, I don't think a lot of people necessarily realize this, is I think you have played in 41 games by my count so far. If you can make it through the season and play in every game this mini season, 46, you could reach potentially by coming back this rarefied air number of 61 games if there's a Stag Bowl run in the future here for Mount Union. Ultimately, that's unheard of, and that's a credit to you. Let's talk about your own gameplay, because we were having a little debate here about what to put down in the corner. Let's see if I can get the direction right. I can't, but whatever, down there. Whether you're a defensive back / linebacker, or what are you exactly in terms of your gameplay? You're kind of a hybrid from what we understand in the way you play it. But, how have you felt in terms of your own maturity? You go to Mount Union, obviously, knowing what you're getting into, a national powerhouse team. But describe for us the experience so far and why you do want to come back. I mean, obviously, it's got to be something incredible about the school, about the program that you like enough to invest another year of your life with respect to coming back to it.
So, you guys, I technically I play like in the front seven. I'm technically an outside linebacker, but I'm more in, pass coverage. So either way, like you said, hybrid. But, a big reason why I'm coming back is because I really don't like the way our season ended last year. Obviously, I think everyone knows we lost 59-52 to North Central in week 12 of the playoffs. And for Mount Union, that's something that's like unheard of. Like, you don't lose week 12 of the playoffs if you come to Mount Union. And, I came to Mount Union because I wanted to, have the opportunity to play in those big games and play in, the week 15 Stag Bowls and, get to celebrate with, my teammates after we win. And, I still have a really sour taste in my mouth at the way that game ended. We felt as though, going into that game, whoever won that game was essentially going to, be the national champion. And you can see how North Central ended after that. So, just a sour taste. And I feel like, as a leader on this team, I don't think I would be doing my teammates or my coaches right, just playing these 5 games and just stepping away after that.
Well, it certainly would be about as nice a way as any for a college career to be bookended with a national championship ring on one hand and then another on the next one, especially if you get to win it in your home state of Canton, Ohio. So, Kordell, thank you again for joining us. We'd like to offer you an opportunity that we do for all of our student athlete guests to provide shout outs to any friends, family, teammates, high school, college, otherwise, that you'd like to just say a shout out to. And thanks again, and good luck this spring season. We'll look forward to tracking number 32 this spring, and also come in the fall. Hopefully we'll have you back on when you guys are maybe in week 14, 15, as it may be.
So just a quick shout out to obviously my parents, been there for me since day one. My Massillon, Ohio, where I'm from, kind of built me, made me who I am. Nate Moore, John Cups, those are my coaches, and Dan Hackenbrack in high school. They kind of helped me along the way. And also shout out to my roommate Josh Petroselli, because that's my boy.
Petro is like the loved player there. I've had enough exposure with Mount Union over the years, that. And Petro is like over and over the name that always comes up as the guy over there at Mount Union. So to Petroselli, we'll send our shout out to him as well. Kordell, shout out to you for being a tremendous guest. And as JB said, we hope to have some more coverage of Mount Union here as the OAC or OAC begins play here this Friday night. Best of luck under the lights, and stay healthy here so that you can put that 60 number to challenge it. That would be, like I said, almost unheard of, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely love talking to Kordell. Thank you again to Lenny for serving up a really great interviewee for us. And good luck to them. Good luck to Muskingum, too. We're not picking sides in teams, not even picking sides here, folks. This is, the start of the end scenario for the Wolverines. But for Mount Union, like Mary Hardin-Baylor, this is an interesting grouping of games for them to play in to see who they have, what they have with a new coach. And you can make some mistakes. You don't want to lose games because it affects winning streaks and all that other stuff that exists out there. And you never want to lose a game if you're either one of those two teams. But the whole thing here is that, where do we have deficiencies? Where do we have players that need experience to make a run for a championship in the fall when we return? They're going to get to answer some of those questions for sure coming up over the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, and I think for a program like a Mount Union, especially with some of the recent graduations we saw at the end of 2012, who who's going to play quarterback. There's a few other open questions, kind of similar to what we saw with UMHB. And this is a great, 5-game window of opportunity for Coach Dartt and the Raiders to kind of figure out what they have and get them teed up for what could be another championship run and a possible Stag Bowl game in their home state of Ohio. Definitely added motivation there, I'm sure, for the Raiders.
I'm exhausted. This has been a show of shows here in terms of all the action we had to cover, all the guests that we got to interview. Not that I'm complaining. It was great interviewing all these players. So thanks again to the schools, Hendrix, Berry, Mount Union, for helping us providing us guests, I should say. Since I'm tripping over my tongue every which way I can, I think this is that time where we say, folks, we're going to try to have another show for you next week. No guarantees always, but we are trying to be consistent right now with spring football. And we have a lot of games to cover if we do come back next week. So tune in. You know where to find your highlights, your video highlights at the very least, right here in the Huddle. JB, thanks as always. We'll see you next week.